Your family greetings, love and light, give thanks to life and that source. Yeah man, so we're supposed to hear the news we are going about these solar activities that happen right now. And we try to tell people say the importance of the sun and not take the sun simply. And that is why when even events like these happens, it's like you gonna hear different videos now people are talk about the sun and the importance of the sun and you know, the whole thing. But as always, we reason about these things and cover these topics already. So we just there prepare ourselves and watch everything play out. No, yeah man. So but them must say out for going and now. You come like what day enough family me there. And my Wi-Fi a malfunction for like 2 weeks. And within myself, may I say, whenever some solar activities are going where I make the thing them a malfunction or what have you. Me just a say it off of my head. And me even like ask others within in other areas what go on for them Wi-Fi. I want to say wait to me see them where. But we never throw them at the same zone or parish or what have you. But that just did run across my mind. Now so them talk about these solar activities and they must say the largest we get within a time. They all like compare certain things to the current event to the happen at the 1800s and all of them way there. So as I with the reason about we are say if anything for happen now we are gonna have more effects. Because even with the current event I just the little tapping cable thing them with the have CMU and them they get affected, you know what I mean? So now with all this technology where we have and everything, we have to just go and look out, no fear mongering thing, but I find that video and I just want to hear them listening it and hear what I go and see them with, seeing? Rastafari.
X Spaces right now. Chase Geyser's running the show here with me, co-hosting. We got a lot of speakers here. We have 6 major solar flares, record level, headed our way. I've looked at the numbers according to previous ones. This looks bigger than the Carrington event in 1859. But the question is, will it hit the Earth? We're not saying we're all doomed, but this is a big deal. And will the globalists piggyback on this? Use as a pretext for control. Chase Geyser, who's up next?
Let's go to Space Weather News. Space Weather, go ahead and unmute yourself and say what you have to say about everything going on.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here with you guys. It has been probably the busiest 48 to 60 hours in the last decade of my life, but it's also been exciting. I don't know what tired is at this point. We do, as you have heard, have 6 X-class solar flares that have released what are called full halo coronal mass ejections at Earth. Basically what this means is the X-ray energy of the solar flare has blasted plasma from the sun into Earth's direction. And all 6 of these are expected to hit over the next 48 to 72 hours. Now, this is the kind of thing where it is a big deal. And this would be a big deal at any time, but it's an even bigger deal right now, especially because, as Shepard was alluding to, we are in Earth's magnetic excursion. The magnetic poles are shifting. The magnetic field, our protection against the sun and cosmic rays and gamma rays from supernova, it is weakening, and it's weakening very quickly. It actually just had an acceleration in this process about a year ago. And we have been seeing these solar events causing more than expected impacts to the Earth. Maybe a decade or two ago, I would have suggested that what's coming this weekend would be relevant. Get out there and try to look for the northern lights or the southern lights, the aurora, if you can, but I wouldn't have been at all concerned. However, we have seen multiple times, and when I say multiple times, we're talking 12 to 15 times over just the last year, where a solar storm has been vastly more impactful to Earth's magnetic field and in terms of minor local to regional level system and network outages, satellite glitches or satellites taken out, which happened to Starlink actually in February of 2022 during a solar storm. And essentially, what we have been noticing is, we make the forecast when these events come at Earth based on not only how big the solar flare is and what we're looking at in the data, but we can correlate that with those in the record from previous decades and say, okay, this similar thing happened in 2004 and 2014 and 1989. So we can say, okay, that'll be about what we're expecting. But time after time, literally every single thing that the sun has thrown at us over the last year has produced 50 to 200% more of a disruption in Earth's magnetic field. There was, basically what I would call a little event from the sun that happened several months ago that caused such a strong solar storm that they're calling it a new and unprecedented type of geomagnetic disturbance. And while it's not really important to go into some of the physics of that, basically something like that is the kind of thing that should perk up people's ears. But the kicker is the fact that it wasn't some kind of a major solar flare. It was just your normal run-of-the-mill solar activity within the 11-year sunspot cycle. And so when we have...
So it's not just more
right
sun
now,
activity. And that's what I've seen in the literature. You're saying the field, our defense shield is weaker.
Absolutely. It's been weakening, and that weakening is accelerating. From approximately the 1850s to the year 2000, we lost 10%. But in just 2010, that number was updated to 15%. We are now down 25 to 30, maybe 35%. And there was a paper that came out of one of the best geophysicists in the world, a guy named Sergei Semenenko out of Russia. And this paper came out just a couple weeks ago, and he said that there was a major magnetic anomaly in March of 2023. And we have spent the last 6 months or so looking at the fact that the aurora are off the charts, the northern lights. We literally broke the record last year for aurora. We're having way too strong a solar storm activity at the Earth, given what the sun is throwing at us. You know, the sun has thrown way, way stronger at us in, say, the 80s or even the 90s, but we didn't take this level of solar storm activity. So it's one thing to take the auroras, for example, to break the auroral record for a year. And then you realize the sun didn't do anything spectacular. The sun was actually weaker than it was 20 years ago, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. It's the fact that our planet's magnetic field, our shield as a planet, is weakening faster and faster. And as I mentioned, that paper by Dr. Semenenko, it took an acceleration last year, which explains why we shattered the auroral record. It explains why there was that, quote, new and unprecedented geomagnetic disturbance. It explains.
Let me ask you this then. Why are they saying this is record level strength then? I see the news. They admit the field's weakening, it's moving. That's all admitted. But then they're also saying this is a near record or record level of ejections right at us.
So that is true. The prolific nature of this sunspot is pretty high up on the charts, but it is of about, X1 to X3 level solar flares. We've taken an X28 directly at the Earth. Now, this took out transformers in Europe. It took out entire grids in South Africa. But here we have so many of them. And what a lot of people don't understand is, let's say you compare 2 X1s to 1 X10, which is 10 times stronger than an X1. I think it's scarier to get 2 in a row. It's like this double tap, this back-to-back impact, because the first one does what they call preconditioning. It already sort of sets the magnetic field into a bit of disturbance. It's like a 1-2 punch. It's like the jab that gets somebody a little bit knocked off their balance, and then the cross that knocks them on the floor, as opposed to one giant haymaker. And so, okay, yeah, there could be a scenario where one giant haymaker is worse, but if you take that jab in the jaw and a quarter of a second later, there's a fast cross coming, you don't have a shot.
So what about astrophysicists I've interviewed that talk about how it affects weather, how it ionizes the atmosphere and creates nuclei? What's your information on that? What should we expect, not electromagnetically with electronics, but what about the electromagnetics with the effect on the atmosphere itself?
Absolutely. So this electromagnetic energy is going to trickle down into the atmosphere and excite what's called the global electric circuit. There are, believe it or not, if you don't know about this, there are vertical currents that go downward through high pressure and upward through low pressure. And it's a giant circuit all over the world. And when we
sure, that's what lightning is. It's part of that. Lightning.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely right. And so what we should see when we get this going on is an increase in wind, an increase in lightning, an increase in cloud condensation nuclei, an increase in storm power, an increase in basically all of the extremes. And, that goes for the other side as well. For people over the next couple of days that are supposed to have fair weather, sunny skies, maybe high temperatures, they're probably going to be a little higher. For people who are scheduled to have severe thunderstorms, they're going to be a little more severe. Anybody who's scheduled to maybe have a derecho or potentially be under tornado watch, better not ignore any sirens the next couple of days. And, we just got an alert coming through that says that Earth's magnetic field is starting to take some reverberations right now. And so even though the forecast isn't for these things to impact for about another 6 to 8 hours, it's possible that it is beginning to impact right now.
Well, you follow this. You're well known for that. You go off the science. So what's coming in on the magnetic field?
So right now, the real-time KP index, which measures the magnetic disturbance to the magnetic field, suggests that we're on our way to a level 2 storm. Now, we're supposed to, when all of these impacts occur, maybe get up to level 4 or the highest level 5. That's not expected to happen with the very first impact. But what's interesting is we're not seeing a ton of information yet in the solar wind, and yet it is being detected in the magnetic field already. And so, I can see it right there. The GOES satellite magnetometer is starting to take extra energy in right now. So it looks like at this time, so I guess this would be a little after noon Central Time in the United States, the impacts are starting to begin, and this would be the first of 6 that we expect over the weekend.
Why don't you take a 3-minute break, sir? Put that on your X account, and we'll come right back to you because this is in live time. Stay right there. We'll come right back to you in 3 minutes, okay?
Okay.
So the satellites are now picking it hit.
Yeah, and that was really fascinating the way that he explained it. It's not a matter of the massive scale of the energy coming towards
so many.
Yeah, it's so many. So it's like, it reminded me of Star Wars, where you take down the shield generator. Shields are almost down, and then once the shield generator's down, the ship can just blow up, right? And so that's what's happening.
Empire Strikes Back. He's like, we've reached the shield generator. Target maximum firepower.
Right. It's like that. I mean, it'd be funny if it wasn't so scary, but interesting that it has an impact on the weather too. I didn't anticipate that, but that makes sense.
No,
there's been tornadoes and stuff even recently too. I wonder if
it's been building. It's well known for at least 60 years. It's not potash volcanoes. They wonder why nuclei form. They learn when sunspots hit, when we get hit, it's a bunch of heat, a bunch of radiation coming in. It forms nuclei, it forms clouds.
Right. Of course, they blame the severe weather on climate change, but it's the sun's activity.
Exactly. And well, that's what they say. A blue norther. Why do we have tornadoes in the spring?
Right.
The cold weather comes down, hits hot. It's the two hitting. Well, all this plasma heat's coming off the sun, and it's like opening up when you're getting a cake out or a pie out of the oven, it's hot.
Yeah.
So it's open, it hits you.
Well, I was driving back from Dallas last night, and I don't know if this is correlated at all or just anecdotal.
Storms, hail.
I saw so much lightning, and usually you see 1 bolt here, 2 bolts there, but it was like electrifying the entire sky. It was like almost like
and they tell you, oh no, it's not the sun, because they want to blame us. Our little cars and our cows farting has nothing to do with that giant ball of fire. Absolutely. That's driving it. This is settled. They always say it's settled, carbon dioxide is bad. No, it's settled, it's good. But there's no debate. It's the sun, people.
Wow.
We'd be absolute zero in 2 days if the sun turned off. It just disappeared.
Right. It takes about, I think, 3 to 7 minutes for the sun's light to get here. So blow up, and then within 5 minutes, the whole planet.
Well, that blew up, we'd all be dead from a supernova, or could do a gas giant that shrink down to a dwarf. The point is, let's just say it disappeared.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't happen. We'd be absolute zero in 2 days.
Wow.
There's no heat.
Right, of course.
There's heat in the earth. You can do thermal and try to live down there, but that's it. Wow. All the real climate of the earth is the sun. It's everything. But the UN passed resolutions repeatedly saying it doesn't exist.
This kind of stuff starts to make me believe in Elon Musk's interplanetary efforts. I mean, it seems.
Well, the
like we need
arguments
to
are you got to get you've got to get settlements out away from the sun's danger.
right.
And the danger now is not it going nova. That's billions of years from now.
Right.
Or it might go into a white dwarf, a black dwarf, a red dwarf, collapse instead. There's ways different stars die. We've observed it. But yeah, if you get out interplanetary and you're way out, you don't have any issue. People out at, Pluto's not worried about coronal mass ejections.
Right.
We're like right up against it. We're like third rock out. We're like right next to the oven. We're in the perfect spot to like the warm, happy place. We're not so nice, except we're in danger.
Wow.
Can't live on Venus, can't live on Mercury.
Right.
Too hot. But you can live right here, but we're like right next to the oven.
It's amazing to me that we get these images of the sun.
And people go, oh, that's flat. I've aimed telescope said it, folks. It's rotating. It's round. It's globe. Let's go back to that amazing speaker, and let's go to his X account, Space Weather News. I've followed for years. Really smart guy, following all the main science. Let's see if he's got his repost back up on this satellite, picking up that it's begun to hit the Earth. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so here's the data I've got right now. First things first, we are approaching a level 2 proton storm. Now, this is something that happens that is in addition to what we've been talking about. This is a direct stream of high energy protons that bombards mostly the polar region. And we are getting to the point where if it gets any stronger from right now, which I have to imagine it's going to, they're going to start rerouting polar flights. I'm looking at polar wind data right now, and it looked like the satellites at the L1 space position. Now, for those who don't know, that stands for Lagrange point 1. It's basically a geostationary point around 1 million miles towards the sun from the Earth, where they can put a satellite there and the gravity of the Earth and the sun will just keep it in place. The solar wind from the very first impact has struck that satellite. So we are minutes away from the first CME actually hitting the Earth. The density is relatively moderate. The speed is relatively strong. The magnetism of this plasma shock wave is pretty powerful.
And let's be clear, the sun's 90 plus million miles away. We've got satellites a million miles out. They're now being hit.
Yeah, they're being hit right now. So basically, for most solar storms like this, when they get hit, you've got a 1 hour warning. Now, at the speed that I'm seeing here from its plasma detectors, we probably only have 30 minutes from right now. I am hoping that the eruptions that follow, so numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because we've got 6 on the way. I'm hoping they're not as strong as this one, because this is a pretty strong initial impact right here.
And so I'm looking at an L1. It looks like from the NASA doc, it's straight on with the sun with us. It's in alignment.
Right. Exactly. So it's in a perfect position to detect these things and give us a tiny bit of warning. This is a pretty strong coronal mass ejection, and I do expect that the solar storms will begin to develop well before the latter eruptions strike in the coming hours.
Do we have any estimate? Do we have any estimate on which of the 6 ejections is the biggest?
It's hard to say. The first, third, and sixth look like they're the biggest, but that is just via the plasma density that you can see from a satellite called SOHO. That's only the density. Of course, the speed of the eruption, the temperature of the plasma, and the magnetic field embedded within those electric particles matters as well. But so the first, the third, and the sixth look like they're the most dense. This one is moderately dense, but it's pretty fast. And like I said, the magnetic field embedded within it is already working our magnetic field pretty good. I would not be surprised if, and this is well before. We're talking 4 to 6 hours early in terms of this one striking. So I would say that from here and for the next several days, we are going to be in geomagnetic storm conditions.
And again, that causes effects here on Earth, not just to electronics, but as you said, it's recognized fact it affects the atmosphere.
Absolutely. To be honest, there's meteorological, seismological, physiological, psychological, and of course, technological impacts of these events. We're talking literally hundreds of studies on everything from heart attacks to emotional instability to ambulance and ER
I've had
calls,
top
to seismic
stockbrokers
activity.
on from Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. They're obsessed with sunspots because all the major wars start with them, right?
Absolutely. At a larger scale, we're talking everything from, crimes like murder sprees to, major, nation versus nation conflicts breaking out. And the number of...
And is that because we're all basically being x-rayed by all this different radiation, or what is it?
So basically, it's like an electric excitement. And without getting too technical, these things from the sun do two main things to the human brain. One, they decrease the mitochondrial activity in the hippocampus. Basically, what it means is we have a cognitive decline. We get a little dumber. As that happens, that electrical energy excites a part of the brain called the locus coeruleus, which is the center for fear, panic, and anxiety.
The reptile brain.
Terror, basically. Exactly. And so everybody gets a little dumber, starts reacting more in terms of terror, fear, panic, anxiety, and has more emotional instability at the same time. And boy, if that isn't just a description of the world today, I don't know what is. And so, yeah, looks like we're on call here.
By the way, if I have new listeners that hear this
days.
and you think, oh, this couldn't be true, just search engine. Major wars always start with sunspots. It's a well-known thing, and we're basically, with layman terms, being just x-rayed with everything you can imagine starting tonight. Or I guess you said in an hour or so it's going to hit starting.
Yeah, I mean, if it's at this plasma speed, with the distance that the satellite is from Earth, we are about 25 to 30 minutes away from this hitting. Yeah.
Well, sir,
I'm going to have to... I'm going to have to jump off. I've actually got a guy from NASA who needs me to call him right now. He's been texting me nonstop for the last 15 minutes.
Okay, I've got a guest in 30 minutes, but I'm going to come back in the fourth hour. We're going to move Jay Dyer. We love him, but we'll have him on with us. But I'm going to try to come back in 40 minutes, sir, okay?
I will see what I can do.
All right, thank you. That guy's really smart.
Yeah,
that's amazing. He knows what he's talking about because I've read all the stuff he's saying, but he knows how to put it all together. Chase, is that not freaking you out?
Yeah, it's freaking me out. There's 25 minutes left. I mean, it's like the movie Armageddon, right? You have 7 days and you got to train up.
Well, this stuff happens, but it's different because it's so much and it's,
Well, and then there's a weather impact and the psychological impact on top of that. I mean, that is absolutely crazy. I had no idea that. I thought that was just astrology woo-woo stuff to think that,
No, that's why we don't live that long. Like sharks and stuff don't get cancer because they're just one program. We are warm-blooded, so we're reacting. We live so close to a giant radiation blast. We're like radioactive creatures, dude. We go outside, we burn.
Yeah.
You think other stuff can live in that? We're tough, dude. We live like by a fireball. I mean, we live like 2 inches from the oven.
Wow.
We're like little creatures that live right on the edge of the fireplace.
Yeah, I never thought of it like that.
And sometimes the fire little flame shoots out and cooks us.
So what does the impact look like? Let's just say everything's fine, but we have this massive psychological impact over the next 7 to...
Well, it's just like lunar. People, the police will tell you, full moon people go crazy. It has an electromagnetic thing, but nothing like this. Nothing like solar flares. Every JP Morgan, BlackRock, it's in the news that every major war starts with a big coronal mass ejection.
Not to mention crime. I mean, I got half a mind to tell my wife to stay home.
Yeah, it's just people get emotional. They get because you're being literally ionized without getting into all the science. Because
Right, it dumbs you down.
You're getting hit by every spectrum, X-rays, gamma rays, particles. Freaking, I mean, you're getting the atmosphere filters it. The electromagnetic field filters some of it, but your cells are reactive. Like you can be depressed, go out in the sun, feel great. Well, you're getting hit by. That's why you get cancer. I mean, we were designed to live close to it, but we get enough doses of this. This is like, I'm not a scientist, but I've read the literature. Let's just say in the next 4 days, we're going to get like 20 chest x-rays. That's kind of just put it lay term.
Right. Wow. Well, hopefully everything will be okay. Maybe
that's like when they tested on British and U.S. troops. They would detonate atomic bombs. Yeah. They put their hands up in front of their face. They were told
they could see their skeleton.
They could see through their hands.
Yeah.
This is like, it's like that.
Wow. Crazy.
But it's not just x-rays. It's everything. And again, the atmosphere, as he said, it's on record. He wasn't lying. He wasn't wrong. Is getting weaker. The electromagnetic shield.
Right.
Just like Star Wars, the shields are almost down. All right, we're going to come right back and go more speakers. This is amazing. Stay with us.
So I got off the phone with one of my contacts at at NASA who was actually listening to the space at the time. And he had heard me say that it looked like a level 2 storm was developing. He wanted to clue me in to some of the data that showed it is actually a level 3 storm that is developing.
So that means a new one. Again, I'm a layperson. That means a new one, another one.
No, so it just means that the first impact was even stronger than I initially looked at it to be. It's not the kind of thing that passes by in 1 second, and especially because the first impact was the combination of 2, perhaps 3 events. It's going to be a multi-hour impact. What I mentioned before about the proton storm hitting the polar region, we are almost at the point where the FAA is going to have to start rerouting polar flights due to the radiation concerns for pilots. I'm looking at the magnetometer data right now.
The FAA can't handle flights as is. I mean, the amount of accidents in here. Seriously, the FAA has major staffing issues and major quality control.
Hold on, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Who just popped in?
That was Prodigal. He popped back in.
I mean, we'll go back to him, but finish your point. Space weather news.
Yeah. So, it's like Shepard said, about an hour ago. This one should be a wake-up call. The chances that this is it, this is the kill shot, the global EMP, are not super high. But this is strong enough that this is probably going to have some of those localized and regionalized network and system effects, whether that's a power grid here or there, or it's some satellites going down. This is, I don't want to be too disrespectful to one of your recent speakers, but we do still have at least 3 and perhaps 4 impacts coming still. And we are already at that preconditioned level. The jab that I was talking about before knocked Earth's magnetic field off of its balance. It is stumbling backwards, and there's crosses and haymakers coming.
All right, so we got to go to break and start the next hour, but just real quick, and hold over if you can. What about the other storms and things they say are forming on the sun? How does that feed into this?
The sunspot is probably not done, and there are more sunspots coming. They don't look quite as big, but I mean, we're at the maximum of the 11-year cycle right now, and so it is going to be quite a little while before we can close our eyes.
Anything else, space weather news on X, you think you should add or pop in later?
I'll be around for a few minutes here.
All right, well, we'll go to 2 minutes. We'll come back and a closing comment from you. Then the fellow that wanted to say something back, we'll go back to him. All right, I have a special guest in studio that's successfully suing the ADL for the rest of the hour. We'll come back in the 4th hour, continue the spaces. People can leave it, keep it in the background, come back. We'll get to everybody 4th hour. But right now, I wanted to finish up with space weather news. And somebody popped in disagreeing, or I want to go to them. I don't know who it was, but we're all about debate here. We're not trying to censor you. We just want to have people finish their point. Go ahead and make your other point. Space weather news, and we'll have this person that wants to say, it sounded like he disagreed, comment to you. Go ahead.
So last thing I want to mention, yes, the sun is still solar flaring right now. I'm tracking the latest one, watching it as it transpires. We are in a level 3 solar storm at the moment. It is likely to go well higher. We should expect, I am expecting technological and meteorological disruptions. Again, I still think the likely for this being a kill shot is low, but this should wake us all up, especially because the Earth's magnetic field is not getting any stronger. And as it continues weakening, we're going to reach a point where something like this is going to take out all of the grids. Last thing I'll say is the trajectory of the high energy protons striking the polar region right now. I don't have any way to contact the FAA. I don't have any contacts there, but they need to get those planes out of the polar region right now, because if another one of these 6 impacts we're expecting strikes right now, it will instantaneously surge. They've got to get those airplanes out of the polar region right now.
And people that don't know, explain that. I mean, everybody knows pilots have problems with cancer because they're up at 30,000 feet. and there's not much water vapor that blocks radiation, so it's really a radioactive area, just like astronauts, even more radiation. But people don't know, and I've looked it up myself, what you were talking about. I didn't even really know that sometimes they have warnings in the polar areas. That's why you see the Van Allen radiation. I mean, that's why you see the Northern Lights, because there's, the magnetic field's not as strong, that energy can come in better. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and that, and the fact that these are relatively strong solar impacts that we're taking. And I can already see in some of the data that what they call an equatorward traveling wave, which is, as the name suggests, waves that travel from the pole towards the equator. And this is what not only can begin to disrupt technology, but this is what we were talking about earlier, the things that begin to affect the weather systems. Those are already heading from the poles to the equator right now. And so I think that they should be getting everything out of the polar region in terms of aircraft. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, just posted that we are well on our way to a level 4 storm event. We are well above the baseline for level 3 right now. And this is only going to get worse over the next couple of days. So this is basically what we've got. And the weather should begin to be affected within the next 2 to 3 hours.
All right, real fast, and hopefully you can come back later. Who was the commenter? He had
Prodigal,
something to
did
say?
you have something you wanted to say? Sorry, I had to mute you.
No, I wasn't disagreeing with him. I mean, Brett Weinstein now has been tweeting about this, and he mentioned the FAA, and my concern was that if you look at the most recent fiscal year report ending in September, they've seen a 65% increase in major incidences. The FAA is doing a horrible job, and if we're depending on them or Pete Buttigieg to carry.
Yes, family, so that go on, as always, just don't look at research same way and keep up to date, Yeah, man, it can serious and it cannot serious. Saying love and light, Rastafari.